We're now carrying on with stage 12, and for this one we're making the axle joint part. This is a little bit harder than the axle we just made, but luckily we've got a part that's halfway there. That's the large bush part. Let's open that from within the assembly somewhere, and then we'll save that and make some changes. Go to File, Save As, and choose Save As Copy and Open. And I'm going to put the file name down as axle joint. We need to now add another section to this part that can hold an axle perpendicular to the first one. To start off, let's start a sketch on the front plane. Let's get the circle tool and draw a circle about here. That should be 5.7 millimeters diameter. It should be lined up vertically with the origin, and then the distance to the center of that circle from the bottom of the existing part is 11.9. We can then do a mid-plane extrude 7.8 millimeters. And I'm going to call that middle top. Next we're going to add the rims. So I'm going to start a sketch on either of these end faces. I'm going to get the circle tool and I'm going to draw a circle that's a little bit bigger. This one should be 7.4. Then we can do a blind extrude 1.4 millimeters and make sure it's going inwards like this. This just adds that rim on the end. So I'm going to call this one top rim. We can then mirror this over because there's one on each side. So let's select that top rim feature. Let's select the plane down the middle. So for me, this is the front plane. And with both those items selected, press mirror. Then press OK if the preview looks good. Next up, we're going to add the section that joins these two bodies together. Start sketch on this plane, the right plane. Then go normal to and get the line tool and draw a sketch something like this. Start at the midpoint here. Go out to the left horizontally, a little bit beyond the end of that existing body. Then go downwards and pick up that outer line of the second body to about here. Then go over to the right horizontally to pick up this edge. Then go vertically up to this end, then go back to the midpoint, and then go back up to the start point. And then this line on the left-hand side should be exactly vertical. So you can click on that and add a vertical relation. This should give you a sketch which is almost fully defined. We just need to add one dimension. Let's just get Smart Dimension and add in 1 millimeter here. So you should have a closed profile, something like this. We can then select this line in the middle, and then here on the left, choose For Construction. That turns this solid line into a construction line. We can then select everything in the sketch, and we can press Mirror Entities, and that will mirror everything we've selected about that center line. That should give you a solid profile that looks like this. We can then extrude this shape using a mid-plane extrude, so let's go to Features, Extruded Boss Base. Let's go mid-plane and 5.7 millimeters. It's the same as that inner diameter at the bottom. And I'm going to call that feature something like axle joint. Next up, we just need to cut away this curved section here. So I'm going to start a sketch on this flat face. I'm going to go normal to, and I'm just going to get a corner rectangle. I'm going to start from this corner and go down to this corner. And that should fully define your rectangle because the opposite corners are fixed. We can then just go to Features, Extruded Cut, and let's do a blind cut in this direction away from the main body. It doesn't really matter what the distance is as long as it cuts through that curved section. So I'm just going to leave mine as about 5 there. We've now cut away that extra section and the joint is exactly the same size as that lower diameter. I'm going to call that one side cut, and we then want to mirror this over to the other side. So select the side cut, select the plane that goes down the middle of the model. This should be the right plane, and then press mirror. And if the preview looks good, press OK. So we've now cut that curved section on both sides. Next up, there's a little wall inside this gap here. To draw this, start a sketch on the right plane, and then get a corner rectangle, and let's just draw from the bottom corner here up to this corner here. And again, that should fully define your rectangle because you've defined the two outer opposite corners. Then let's do a mid-plane extrude, 1.4 millimeters mid-plane, and press OK. And let's call that something like middle wall. Now the bottom of this overhanging face is actually angled. We probably don't really need that extra detail, but we're going to add it for completeness anyway. First, I'm going to select the plane that goes down the middle. So this should be the front plane. And with that selected, choose the draft feature from the Features tab. This feature lets us add a draft angle to a face. We should have the front plane selected here. And then for the faces to draft, let's just choose this face here. And we'll set a draft angle of 3 degrees and press OK. And it should add, if we look from the side, a slight angle like this. If you find that your angle's in the opposite direction, what you can do is edit that draft feature and then just flip the direction. You can do that just by pressing this reverse direction box. Then let's just add the same on the other side. So let's select that plane again, the front plane. Also select the draft feature and then choose the face you want to draft and set 3 degrees. And you'll have to reverse the direction on this side compared to the other side because we're drafting in the opposite direction. And if we look from the side, it should look something like this with those 2 angled edges. Next up, we can actually cut the axle hole. Let's start a sketch on the front plane. Let's go normal 2 and draw the axle cut that we've drawn loads of times now. It starts with a circle that's 4.8 diameter. And then there's 2 center rectangles. They're the same width. That's 1.8. And then the length of them is set by making them tangent to that circle. We can then do an extruded cut and we can go through all both. And we can select in the selected contours all 5 of those areas of the cross to cut out. And when you've made that, you can call it axle cuts. We're now almost done. All that remains is to add the slot through the middle of the top. Start a sketch on the right plane and get the slot tool and get a center point straight slot and draw it roughly in this position. For the size, it should be 1 millimeter high. It should be 3.8 long along the middle of the slot. The middle of the slot, so the center point, is lined up vertically with the origin. And then the position to the middle of the slot is 11.9 from the very bottom of the part. Then to finish off, we can just do an extruded cut through or both. And let's call that one top slot. This part is now complete, so you can save your part. And in the next video, we'll use these parts to complete stage 12.